This is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank on WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. Time now for another interview segment brought to you by our friends at Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. One of the big things that has come out of the pandemic is, of course, the virtual workplace, and we've been discussing that as part of our discussions here this week. And, of course, now a hybrid workplace environment is being called upon in some situations, but could that environment get toxic? Joining us right now is the CEO of ActiveOps North America, a global company leading in management process automation. This is Spencer O'Leary. Spencer, it's good to have you with us today.
Good to be here. Thanks, Josh.
Now, let's get a definition out there. A hybrid workplace. I'm thinking it is obviously a combination of the virtual workplace that we've seen using Zoom meetings or working from home and coming into the actual brick and mortar office. Have we been seeing that as a popular thing coming up across America?
I think a popular thing, and for good reason. So back in 2019, most people would go downtown or out of town into a corporate office, maybe 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, and they'd work sat at a desk with a bunch of other people. And in 2020, everybody went home, and we all started working virtually. And that virtual workplace caused a couple of interesting things to happen. One, we actually saw productivity increase. People's output increased when they got rid of the distraction of working around other humans in an office. But also some things started to decrease. Employee well-being is questionable. Stress in the workplace, it causes attrition, it causes sickness, and some horrible situations with individuals. We need to be careful of that. Also, working remotely meant that people's innovation and creativity reduced. So the born of the hybrid workplace, maybe working from home on a Monday and a Friday, get my productive work done, and then meeting in the office on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to collaborate, to congregate, think of ideas, drive innovation, be creative, and this new hybrid work seems to be here to stay.
You mentioned some of the pros of having a hybrid workplace and the fact that people are free of distractions and they are able to be more productive on the days that they're home and they're able to come into the office when needed. But have you seen any cons to using this system?
Well, I think some cons are when the appropriate management processes aren't in place. So enabling people to work from home, big organizations did that very quickly in 2020. If you give people a laptop, the right connectivity, the right tools to enable remote work, then whilst challenging, working from home wasn't that difficult. But what has been difficult and proved disastrous for some organizations is the ability to manage remotely. How do I give managers who had two of their most important management assets, their eyes and their ears, they could no longer see or hear people, and yet we still expected them to manage appropriately when both they were remote and the people that they were managing were remote. So for me, a huge disadvantage of this new hybrid model is if you don't have appropriate management systems, processes, and skills in place, then disaster may strike as you try to implement your hybrid work strategy.
We've seen some studies where 83% of workers are viewing hybrid workplaces as an optimal way to work, but putting a plan together is something that is extremely difficult. What are some of the things that employers probably should keep in mind if they're thinking about going to a hybrid workplace?
Well, three key things for me that employers need to get right if they're going to enable this opportunity of having a higher productive workforce as well as maintaining that creativity, innovation, and well-being. The first point is data. That eyes and ears moment being taken away, you need to have good data about what people are doing and when if you're going to be able to manage them remotely. The second point is have that data be balanced. You need to understand people's performance. You also need to understand people's well-being. If you focus on either of them singularly or neither of them at all, you're going to have a disastrous hybrid work experience. And the third is make sure you enable your managers to be in control. Adopting systems like those provided by ActiveOps enables managers to be in control. An in-control manager is managing performance and well-being today, tomorrow, and next week. They have foresight. They're thinking about the future. Out-of-control managers think about this morning or yesterday or last week. They jump from crisis to crisis. They firefight rather than proactively managing what's going on. If we get those three things right, data, balance, and control, we stand a chance of having a good, productive, and high well-being orientated workforce.
But as we know, with, of course, the coronavirus pandemic happening in 2020, the future is unpredictable. It has to be difficult for a manager to be able to be proactive when you don't know what's coming around the corner.
Exactly that point, and that's been a management challenge for years. Whether I was hybrid, whether I was managing from home, or whether I was in 2019 managing in an office. So making sure we equip those managers with the right skills, the right processes, and the right systems to be in control is absolutely key to that hybrid workforce management as we go forward.
We're talking with Spencer O'Leary. He's the CEO of ActiveOps North America, talking about hybrid workplaces. We've talked about the pros and cons and some of the difficult things that people may encounter if they decide to go to a hybrid workplace. Spencer, obviously, proper planning and proper foresight is important with this to make sure that these hybrid workplaces don't turn into toxic workplaces as well, because it is very easy, it sounds like, for a hybrid or remote workplace to become toxic as it is a brick and mortar workplace where people are coming into the office and have to deal with the drama or the stress of coming in.
I think it is, and there's a couple of things I think worth any manager who's listening today to think about as they start to execute that hybrid work strategy that they're thinking of today. Just remember that most people join an organization, but they leave because of a bad manager. And that's a real startling thought, that people leave because of bad managers. If we don't get this hybrid structure right, then the first thing that will happen is sickness. People start deciding not to come to work. But attrition is a real cost. And we're seeing today, with an increased demand on labor and a shortfall in resource, that the employees have got the upper hand in the market. And if employers don't get their hybrid work strategy right, and they don't execute that strategy well, then they're going to have a real challenge as we move forward, attracting and keeping the right level of talent.
Attracting talent is actually one of the problems that we've seen, not just in corporate America, but on also other sectors as well. I mean, we're seeing companies offering bonuses that seem astronomical, or a higher pay rate or higher wages as well. Do you think that a hybrid office setting is going to be, if done right, is it going to be something that will attract maybe somebody to maybe come out of unemployment and go for the job?
I think it is. I think it's going to both attract people to come out of unemployment, but also attract people away from their current role. It has never been easier in this remote or hybrid workforce model to change jobs. I literally, get a new laptop shipped to me, and I sit at my office at home in the same chair at the same desk, and tomorrow I could work for somebody else. It's never been easier. So if we need to attract good talent by making the hybrid work option or the remote work option a real benefit to people, so they can have that flexible lifestyle, they can accommodate some of the things that they've got used to doing during the normal working day through 2020, and they can continue to do that through 2021. I think as long as this boom continues, where we've got the demand for jobs outstripping the supply of good talent, then that power struggle will stick with the employee. And as you say, some employers are offering huge sign-on bonuses, pay increases. I think they can offer hybrid work as a real enabler to get good talent into their organization.
Let's say someone does decide to go all in on the hybrid workplace. How does a manager make sure that whenever something happens at the office, that the hybrid employees, the ones that are working remotely, aren't excluded, so that it doesn't turn into a at-home worker versus in-person worker situation?
And I think that is a great problem for managers to overcome as we move forwards. And there's a couple of things that those managers need to do to make sure that they're being inclusive with some of the people, whether in the office or at home. So one of the things that a lot of managers have talked to me about, imagine I was a manager that in 2019 I managed all of my team in the office, and then in 2020 I managed all of my team at home. Actually, the inclusion was okay because I could include people I can see face to face. And if we're all experiencing remote work, it's easy to include people over Teams or over Zoom. But the hybrid model makes that really difficult. If I'm in the office with a few of my team and some of the other members of my team are at home, imagine that person, how are they going to manage some people in person, some people remote? So making sure that people have got the right tools, things like Teams, things like Zoom, and adopting the right processes where everyone can be heard and everyone can be seen. When I'm meeting with my team, I always insist on people having their cameras turned on, insist on keeping background noise low, using some of the Teams chat to make sure that we can stay in touch with people. So it's about managers adopting a new way of managing, as well as data and being in control. It's also about using the tools that we've got for collaboration to make sure that we keep everybody included in meetings and discussions as we move forward.
What it brings to mind is actually a discussion that's going on with one of our borough governments in them trying to turn the meeting room into a Zoom room or a Zoom-friendly facility where they can actually hold somewhat hybrid meetings in that regard. So it's pretty interesting to see what sort of technology gets to be implemented. I guess it all boils down to what a manager feels comfortable with, whether it being Zoom or Teams or whatever, and also the equipment that they have to put in place to make sure that things work right.
It does, and also it's about people's individual preferences and behaviors. So there are a number of managers, and it's surprising when you look at the generation. So most Generation Z, so that the 18 to 25-year-olds, use that technology great. There's also some of the older population that have used that technology great. They've perhaps been using it for some time and have got quite used to it. There's a whole midsection of our generation that finds some of that technology challenging, and it's probably the sort of 30s and 40s and early 50s. And those managers really do need to invest the time to get used to using the Zoom and the Teams technology, because that's part of being a manager today. You sometimes have to have difficult performance conversations with people, and sometimes you can't do that face-to-face. You're going to have to do it over some sort of screen-based interaction. And making sure you have practiced that skill, you've perfected that skill, is going to be critical if you want to be a good manager in 21-22.
Spencer, we're just about out of time, but if anybody wants to avail themselves of what ActiveOps has to offer, how can they get in contact?
So they can go look at our website, ActiveOps.com. They can have a look at our tools, our solutions. And if any manager out there today is thinking about their skills and their processes and their systems and how they're going to cope with managing the hybrid workforce, go have a look at our solution on ActiveOps.com. We'd be here to help.
All right. Spencer, thank you very much for joining us on Indiana in the Morning. All the best to you. And again, thanks for joining us. This has been a really great discussion.
That's great. Thank you.